First of all, as I said, I would like to offer, along with my felicitations on this very important day, just one day before 2nd October, his birthday, we are observing his and celebrating Gandhiji's 156th year. And Gandhiji, incidentally, had wanted to live for 125 years. I have searched everywhere, and now it's very easy to search because it's all digitized, collected works of Mahatma Gandhi. But I don't know if anybody who is, good can find this out. Why 125 years? Somebody told me ऋषि मुनियों का ये कैसा मानते थे, that 125, you could live to be 125. It was one of those things. But from him specifically, that why did he say 125 years? I would live to be 125 years. I have not been able to find the reason why he chose this date. But certainly he referred to it many times. And also to say, now I don't want to live for 125 years, in both ways. But that thought was very much there. The topic we have chosen today, that is the Gandhi Study Circle, offered me this topic, and I accepted it without hardly any change. I think I may have dropped one word because it was nuclear conflict. So I said, why limit it to nuclear conflict? Now in a post-Trump world or a Trump world, everything is going to be sorted out, including nuclear conflict. Every problem is going to have some accord or settlement. Every day he's coming up with something. Anyway, that's a joke. But so for me, I'll come to it in a minute, but I'll talk about conflict largely to do with social conflict, all right? And even more specifically later on, communal conflict and what we can learn from him. 2-3 years ago, I was invited by the BBC television to be part of a program. You can call it, it was for 8 episodes. It was called Icons. Now, only 6 to 8 figures were chosen from across the world. Gandhi is an obvious choice. He's an icon who is acceptable. Acha, okay. He is an icon who is acceptable across the ideological spectrum. Icons of Gandhi are everywhere. You may have read in yesterday's newspaper about how a statue of Gandhiji has been desecrated in London, and now the Indian High Commission has taken it up and they are restoring it, etc. These things keep happening. So I would say that Gandhi is a figure who invites both adoption, appreciation, even appropriation. That means that he's appropriated not as his ideas are, but people appropriate him in their own way without really believing in him. When I was doing some research on Gandhiji's last years, I'm writing a book. I've been writing it for so long that one of my students the other day said, "Ma'am, please write it before your last years." Now that shows that how good an equation we have with our students, that they can say this to us. But I was researching for this. This was 2019, just before COVID. And every day when I would walk down to the British Library, I would pass in Tavistock Square. There was this statue, which is a very famous statue of Gandhi made by Freda Brilliant, which again had invited or been the site of some controversy earlier. There's the one outside, a bronze Gandhi situated outside the Houses of Parliament in London also, where again you might recall many Dalit or some Dalit groups protested. In South Africa, where he made such a mark, and for us it's so important as his sort of Karm Bhumi, where he practiced satyagraha and all that, and we see it as so important. But even in South Africa, he has invited criticism, and also his statues have been the target of not just derision but physical, desecration, etc. Now, what I found very almost ironic was that on the one hand, in London there were at least 5 statues of Gandhi in very prominent places. And when I was sitting in the library of the British Library looking at the India Office records, I was reading colonial documents for the period 1942 to 1945, when Gandhiji was in jail. And what were these documents about? These documents were about when he was on fast. He went on a fast. He was already in his 70s. He went on a fast for 21 days. And what were the documents about? Prime Minister Churchill saying, "Do you think he will die?" And the governor and viceroys here are saying, "Don't worry, we are very sure he is going to die." And then entire preparations were made for his funeral, including sandalwood logs were bought. And the telegram, which was to be sent from Delhi to all the places in the Commonwealth, including London, of course, there was a code word, Rubicon. So if Gandhiji died, this telegram will be sent. So here was I sitting here and reading all this. Colonial government calling him, as you know, a fakir in loincloth. In this period, they were particularly critical of him because Gandhiji had given the call for quit India. Bharat Chodo, Karo Ya Maro. And the British were very angry with him, and they tried to show him up as a Japanese agent. Not as a German agent, but as a Japanese agent. So the irony of that situation, of my situation, sitting there, 2019, attending lectures in University of London by Bhikhu Parekh and other people who attended by many people, all of whom are, lionizing Gandhi, right? And what was the past, you see, and what was the record and what we were looking at. Okay. Going back to icons, to the program, the particular episode which was chosen for the BBC program Icons was, any guesses? Which episode in his life is in a way, most iconic? Which, when you think of Gandhi, you think of that. Anyone? Dandi March. Very good, very simple guess. So they had chosen the Salt March, the Dandi March. So we went to Dandi. That's a place near Surat, near Navsari, and the whole team. And when Gandhi had walked to the sea, just by picking up the salt, he had defied the salt law. It was an act of defiance which put him, and the Dandi March, which put him on the world map, literally on the cover of Time magazine. When we went, I don't know if you know this, but now salt is made in a very different way. There are salt pans. That is, salt water from the sea is brought in channels and spread over the fields to evaporate. And from the sun's rays, the water evaporates and leaves behind as residue on the fields salt crystals, crystals of salt, which are then heaped up in mounds. And then when there's a big enough mound, a tempo will come sent by the trader and they will take it away. What I thought would really shock Gandhiji when I saw this was that right next to these salt pans or salt fields, as we can call them, now it was more lucrative to grow prawns. So prawn fishing had become very popular over there. So I was wondering how Gandhiji would quite react to that. Sanjeev Bhaskar, the well-known TV personality in United Kingdom, House Number 44, and many of the films that he has made. He was the anchor of the program, and when we were leaving, he picked up some salt crystals to take back home with him to London. And like my mind works mostly, I wondered whether he would be allowed by the British customs to bring in mineral wealth from outside the country, because they always tell you can't take any seed, you can't take in any biological thing, and this is mineral wealth. If you go to the Andamans and Nicobar Islands and you have picked up some piece of coral or any little thing, you are asked to deposit it there, because it's very valuable mineral wealth. So I was wondering whether he will be allowed to take in mineral wealth which has come from outside the country. And I thought it was very ironic that here is this gentleman, an Indian diaspora, and given centuries of colonial plunder by Britain from India, that, all this whole entire makeup. Coming to Satyagraha. Satyagraha is a very difficult word to translate, but very loosely we can call it truth force, the force of truth. For Gandhiji, and I think this is very important, and why I think it's very good that historians are dealing with Gandhi and not philosophers. I don't have anything against philosophers, but I have a problem with what they do to Gandhiji, that it was not an abstract concept, right? It was an instrument, a political instrument, which was chiseled by use in political practice. Chiseled in use, I think, is, if you try to understand, meaning you're not only chiseling the marble for the statue, but the chisel itself is getting refined, okay? So in political practice, Satyagraha, the weapon or the instrument I should call it, somehow I don't like the word weapon when it's used a lot. It's chiseled by use in political practice. The word literally means to insist on the truth. The heart and soul of Satyagraha is resistance to any form of wrongdoing, be it racism, colonialism, communalism, or caste oppression. This resistance can take diverse forms, bound only by the limits, and here a key word comes in from what we are discussing, the limits which are set by non-violence or ahimsa. Even ahimsa, the word, was not a passive word. मुझे बहुत तकलीफ होती है जब गांधी जी की जो अहिंसा है उसको एक पैसिव मीक उस तरह से देखा जाता है, because it was actually non-violence demanded courage and commitment, including love and respect for the perpetrators of injustice. I'll come to that in a minute. Gandhi's ahimsa was not the cowardice of the weak. कमजोरी नहीं थी. It was fired by fearlessness. Jawaharlal Nehru, his disciple, follower, described his mentor, that is Gandhiji, in lyrical prose. I'll just read it out very quickly. And then Gandhi came. He was like a powerful current of fresh air that made us stretch ourselves and take deep breaths, like a beam of light that pierced the darkness and removed the scales from our eyes, like a whirlwind that upset many things, but most of all, the working of people's minds. एक आंधी, एक हवा का झोंका, इस तरह से वो उसको डिस्क्राइब कर रहे हैं. द एसेंस ऑफ गांधी जी's teaching, Nehru continued, was fearlessness, not merely bodily courage, but absence of fear from the mind. The dominant impulse in India under British rule was that of fear. Pervasive, oppressing, strangling fear. Fear of the army, the police, the secret service, fear of the official class, fear of laws, fear of landlords' agents, fear of the moneylender, fear of unemployment and starvation, which were always on the threshold. It was against this all-pervading fear that Gandhiji's quiet and determined voice was raised. Be not afraid. बहुत ही सुंदर लिखा है, मतलब ये पूरा evocative है किस तरह से ये है. Gandhi himself explained how non-violence enabled participation of the masses. That was one thing. But more important, it put the government in a very difficult situation. He called it an unenviable quandary. What does the word quandary mean? जिसको हम असमंजस कहते हैं, or a dilemma. What should we do? Here are these people, they are opposing us but doing it non-violently. So let me just give you a few sentences from Gandhi, how he explained this. Reference is to civil disobedience movement. That was just the beginning of the Salt March. Gandhi says, though the battle is about to begin in a couple of days, दो एक दिन में जो है हम लड़ाई हमारी जो है, जो स्ट्रगल है वो शुरू होने जा रही है. हाउ इज इट दैट यू कैन कम हियर सो फियरलेसली? तब भी क्या बात है कि आप में बिल्कुल भी डर नहीं है, आप मैदान पे आ रहे हैं. हैव यू नो फियर ऑफ राइफल शॉट्स और बॉम्ब्स? व्हाई? Supposing I had announced that I was going to launch a violent campaign, not necessarily with men armed with rifles, but even people carrying sticks or stones, do you think the government would have left me free till now? अब तक तो मैं बंदी बना लिया जाता. Can you show me an example in history? Be it England, America, or Russia, where the state has tolerated violent defiance of authority for a single day. और यहाँ क्या हालात हैं? The government is puzzled and perplexed. You will find in many places it is published, but I had read it in Nehru Memorial Library. One of the ICS officials, ICS आप समझते हैं? इंडियन सिविल सर्विस, हिंदुस्तानी थे, उनका नाम था HVR आयंगर, तमिलनाडु से थे. तो उन्होंने बहुत ही अच्छी तरीके से लिखा है कि नॉन वायलेंट एजिटेटर्स के ऊपर गोली चलाना या सिर्फ एक even to have a lathi charge on them to beat them, how difficult it was, and how the policeman would come to him. He was the Home Secretary, that is like the head of the Home Ministry at that time, in charge of internal order. He said they did not want to obey the commands, because they said, how can you beat up and lathi charge a non-violent mob? They said, we are willing to do anything. if the mob is violent. And many other people, including Britishers, have written about this, the impact of non-violence, how it created a quandary in them, what to do. If it was, they said, oh, we are better off if the mob was violent. That is why in Quit India, thousands of people were put behind bars, thousands of people, hundreds of people lost their lives. There was bombing from the air because government can justify. Telegraph wires are being cut, railway lines are being uprooted. Violent movement है. गांधी जी को उठा के जेल में डाल दो. Nehru and company, they are put in jail. You can justify. But Dandi March, even when they put the leaders in jail, Gandhi, later on Nehru, etc., etc., most of the time they are thinking, oh, the people who are supporting us, जिनको हम लॉयलिस्ट कहते हैं, जो ब्रिटिश रूल के समर्थक थे, वो लोग भी हैं, वो सोचेंगे कि देखो ये सरकार, देखो कितनी क्रूर सरकार है जो कि नॉन वायलेंट एजिटेशन के ऊपर इस तरह से उनका रवैया है, इस तरह से वो करते हैं. ओके, नाउ लेट मी मूव टू टॉक अबाउट द गांधी दैट आई नो बेस्ट. गांधी जी इन हिज लास्ट ईयर्स, सन 42 से लेकर 48 तक, जिसमें जैसे मैंने शुरू में कहा कि मैं एक पुस्तक लिख रही हूँ बहुत दिन से. Not the Gandhi of the Dandi March who became a world figure, but here is Gandhi, and I take up just two aspects. एक ब्रिटिश जेल में है सन 42, 43, 44 में 2 साल. कस्तूरबा की डेथ उसी समय होती है. महावीर, no, not Mahavir, what is his name, Desai? Mahadev Desai, his secretary, he also dies at that time. Both of them are cremated, buried there in what is called Aga Khan Palace in Pune. And the second episode is Gandhi ji in Noakhali. First of all, I want to make one or two things very clear. That's why I said in the beginning, I'm making the claim that as historians, we understand or we are in a position to interpret Gandhi and his ideas better. Why? You pick up a book, even one of the best political scientists, and Gandhiji's ideas are frozen in time. We are told that Gandhiji's ideas are, where do we go for them? Hind Swaraj, 1907. As if nothing has changed in the whole period from 1907 onwards. The ever-changing Gandhi. Professor Bipin Chandra has written an article on this also, which is very, I think, useful. So, in this period, let me give an example. In 1947, when Gandhiji was asked, why does he not go on a fast unto death to oppose partition? Gandhiji की हर शाम को ना prayer meeting होती थी. And I didn't want to say this in the beginning, but I can say this now, that maybe next time here when you have a function for on Gandhi's birth anniversary, it might be good to have a all religion symbolically something, maybe one verse from singing from Abide With Me, or one verse from Quran or from a Parsi, whatever. Because for him, he was a very devout Vaishnav, But he also believed, as I said, in all religions and their basic unity. So, in the prayer meetings, where it was all religion prayer meeting he used to hold every day, so people will come and very angrily, खास करके जो रेफ्यूजी आते थे पाकिस्तान की तरफ से, पंजाब से बहुत लोग आ गए थे तब तक मई और जून के महीने में 1947 में, तो लोग पूछते थे बहुत गुस्से से, आपने तो कहा था कि पार्टीशन ओवर माय डेड बॉडी, मैं इसको होने नहीं दूंगा. Why are you not going on a fast unto death? And what did Gandhi ji say? Gandhiji said, I have a big task to do. What is that task? When I read it for the first time, I was surprised. He said, industrialization of the villages. So things have changed from Hind Swaraj 1907. It's important to keep that in mind. Though, of course, as I said, it remains even till today a classic text of as a critique of modern civilization. Let me give another example. Gandhiji, we always associate the idea of trusteeship with him. Capitalists will look after their workers. Landlords will look after the peasants. This idea had changed by 1940s, the ever-changing Gandhi. There's a very famous biography of Gandhi by Louis Fisher. अगर आप पढ़ें तो आपको बहुत अच्छी लगेगी. अमेरिकन जर्नलिस्ट थे जो इंडिया में आए और बहुत साल यहाँ रहे. तो 1942 में Louis Fisher asked him, did he believe in abolition of zamindari? What is your view now? He asked. Gandhiji quipped. He said, maybe the zamindars will cooperate by fleeing their lands. So he's, it's not, the idea has changed. He's no longer saying, no, they are very good. So in a way, but abolition, he's also saying, but not through abolition, but the same thing will happen by the voluntary action on the part of the zamindars. We are talking about Gandhiji's dream. Is it alive today? And in the context of trusteeship, what comes to my mind is how transformation of the opponent, that was integral to the idea of trusteeship. How you appeal to a person and get him, change of heart जिसको कह सकते हैं. And here I wanted to draw your attention to the work which is done by Professor Shanta Sinha. She retired as a professor of political science from Central University, Hyderabad. And she started a movement for eradicating child labor. Right? The person who introduced me read out the book also. NBT की तरफ से एक छोटी सी किताब मैंने लिखी थी इस पे, Education for Social Change. So what did she do over here? We had done with Professor Bipin Chandra in 1980s a very big oral history project all over the country. And since, we were funded by, उन दिनों में फिर भी पैसे मिल जाते थे कुछ, but we were funded by ICSSR, Indian Council of Social Science Research. But government money is very little. We used to have 30 रुपए में खाना होता था, वो भी बॉम्बे शहर में, आर्काइव्स के बाहर पटरी पर भी हमें खाना नहीं मिलता था. And Professor Bipin Chandra was a very tough taskmaster. But anyway, she joined us. We had no money for interpreters. So when we were in Andhra Pradesh, she joined us as Shanta Sinha as a Telugu interpreter to translate. When we were talking to people who were in Telugu, she would translate to us in English or Hindi or whatever. And she has written that incidentally has got awarded the Padma Shri. She has been awarded the Ramon Magsaysay Award. And, her work has really been appreciated greatly in developmental circles all over the world. She said that it was the stories she heard about Gandhian transformation while being part of our group and interviewing the Gandhian activists who talked about changing hearts and minds of people, that they developed their own concepts in the field. And the amazing thing is, you will find, if you read this book, I know I have written it, so I should not be like advertising it, but it's okay. It's a very small book. It costs only 40 rupees, I think. I'll happily send copies to your department if anybody is interested. Once I bought some 100 of them. So this, they developed a very interesting concept called Vidyadan. That is, they would go to the zamindar and they knew that he had bonded labor. बंधुआ मजदूर आप समझते हैं, हाँ? बच्चे, parents will keep the children there with the zamindar and get some loan for him, and then the child is stuck there. So what would they do? They will put a advertisement in the newspaper, local newspaper, कि फला दिन फला जमींदार 5:30 बजे शाम के इस भवन में वो विद्यादान देंगे in the presence of, it can be some minister, it can be a local MLA, some important person. This person does not know anything. He has not said anything. But because he is given this importance, कि देखो मैं विद्यादान दे रहा हूँ, and he is being respected for it, so he will come and he'll say, I am giving, he thinks that it caught on in a very big way. And the interesting thing, I forgot I was saying that, and then I went somewhere else about the book. Interestingly, Shanta Sinha started her political life as a Maoist. She and her husband were part of the Nakshal movement. Her book, her PhD is on Maoist movement in Andhra Pradesh. That is the name of her book, her PhD. So she was the first PhD on JNU. And woman, of course, that is a very big thing, but first PhD in JNU. So this is a small, it's not so small, they have liberated, the M. Venkatarangaya Foundation have liberated over 1 lakh children, bonded labor, in the districts of Rangareddy and adjoining areas of Hyderabad. So I thought rather than talk about, Brazil and other parts of the world where Gandhiji, ideas are there, why not talk about India? The third point was that for Gandhi, ahimsa or non-violence was not an absolute belief. In Chauri Chaura, if you remember, everybody told him, from Jawaharlal Nehru to many other people, Gandhiji, please don't withdraw the movement. What happened there was wrong. But people got incensed, and Gandhiji said no. He was very dogmatic about that no, non-violence has to be observed. Look at the situation by 1942, and you will find it very interesting. The governor, Viceroy, writes to Gandhiji in response to a letter which Gandhi has written to him saying, why are you keeping me in jail, etc. Why don't you condemn the actions of 1942? You call yourself, this is what the Viceroy wrote, you call yourself an apostle of non-violence, yet you have not condemned what people have done. What does Gandhiji say to him? He doesn't say, I condemn it, no. He says, the people were helpless. It was a helpless reaction of a people to the leonine violence of the state. Leonine, from lion, the word, matlab very, very brutal, very big. So the violence of the state was leonine. People were helpless, and that is why they had to resort to violence. And he understood that the capacity of the people to struggle and the appropriateness of different forms of struggle was linked to the nature of the state. That is why we say that, I said in the beginning, that it was a chisel which was being constantly sharpened and refined over time. Very interestingly, many people have raised this question, but there is no satisfactory answer, except to say that Gandhiji was very intuitive. Intuitive का हिंदी वर्ड क्या होता है, मैं कई देर से सोच रही हूँ. जब, can anybody give me a word in Hindi? हाँ, आभास, ओके थैंक यू, आभास होना। एक होता है हर चीज़ इंटेलेक्ट से काम करना, राइट? सॉरी, ओके फाइन, पूर्वाभास। तो ये, सो गांधी वॉज वेरी इंट्यूटिव, ही डिड नॉट गो ओनली बाय हिज इंटेलेक्ट। सो व्हाट डिड ही डू? ही अक्सर जो है, अगर आप उनकी लास्ट फास्ट देखें, जनवरी 1948 में फास्ट अनटू डेथ, सितंबर 1947 की देखें इन कैलकाटा फास्ट अनटू डेथ। बट when he is in jail, he doesn't say fast unto death because he knows the government will be very happy that the fast is unto death, that he should die. Just I said in the beginning, they had made all the preparations. Sandalwood bhi kharid liya tha for his pyre, right? So very, very sensibly, very intuitively, it was a symbolic fast, but it was not just for 1 or 2 days. कहीं पे उन्होंने सोचा और अपना एहसास था, अपनी एक उन्होंने अंदाज़ा लगाया अपनी क्षमता पर कि 21 दिन तक मैं उपवास कर सकता हूँ. Of course, there was in between around the 10th or 12th day, he almost didn't make it. You know, the levels of uric acid and all in his thing. He was constantly being monitored by doctors, and the doctors were government doctors, and they were telling the government, who was conveying it to the British Prime Minister, very good, very good. He is now, you know, going to die. We are very certain now that we are going to get the good news. I mean, it's amazing. Anyway, तो इसके साथ I wanted to just link one thing. I didn't have time to talk about this, that in this period, 1942-3 की बात कर रही हूँ, गांधी जी जो है, उनका जो इंस्पिरेशन थी for his fasting, yes, it came from his mother. It came from the Vaishnav, Hindu, and more specifically Jain tradition. चतुर्मास के समय कुछ नहीं खाना 4 महीने के लिए, and you know that whole thing. Yet, and this is very important, Gandhi described his fast as crucifixion of the flesh. Crucifixion शब्द आप किससे जोड़ते हैं? जीसस से, राइट? एंड इस समय उनकी जो फेवरेट एक हिम थी, वो थी सर्मन ऑन द माउंट. लीड काइंडली लाइट, ये पढ़ते थे. अबाइड विद मी. हिज सेक्रेटरी एंड वाइफ डाइड इन जेल, and he asked that these hymns should be played. Now this is very, very interesting. The fourth, I'll move to the Noakhali, East Bengal, 1946, November. Gandhi ji made this area, very distant corner of East Bengal, Chittagong district, tha. He made it his, what he called his Karma Bhumi. That is the word he used, his abode of work, for the working of ahimsa in Hindu-Muslim relations. So this is the example that I am taking up for conflict. What did Gandhi ji do? How did he resolve or try to resolve conflict, social conflict? And what is it that we can learn from him? The learning part, I hope you will draw the lessons from what I am sharing with you. I keep trying to talk a little in Hindi. Is it necessary? Is there anybody here, any people for whom it is desirable or not? Bataiye?
It's good.
It's good? It's not a bad idea? Okay, fine. Thank you. किसी और जगह लिखते हुए नोआखली के बारे में उन्होंने कहा कि मैं यहाँ पर एक तीर्थ यात्रा पर हूँ. He referred to it as a pilgrimage. Gandhi spent 4 months there, reached there 6th November, left in March 2nd to bring peace to this region. His tour, walking from village to village, his efforts at using combating communalism. This was a place जहाँ पे बहुत बुरे तरह के riots हुए थे. उनको can't even call them riots. They were like a reign of terror जिस तरह उस एरिया में था. And one thing that he brings out very well here is what he does about building up the courage and confidence of women. One special or particular feature of the violence in Noakhali was the conversion, forced conversion and forced marriages of Hindu women in this case. So Gandhiji dealt with this in different ways. One, he told the Bengal government, all such marriages must be declared as bogus. So he got them to do a declaration, okay? Because we must not think that he was only a person going around doing bhai bhai type of thing. He's a tough person also. What does he say to the ladies, the widows of Noakhali? He said, I have not come to bring you consolation. I have come to bring you courage. Building fortitude was very important. And here's something very interesting. He said, when a group of women came to meet him to tell him what had happened to them, he said, why are you not wearing your shankha bangles? I don't wear them, I'm not Bengali, but white color, white and red color, right? The shankha bangles, they are a kind of sign of marriage, right? Why are you not wearing shankha bangles? Why are you not putting sindhur? Why are you not doing the uludhwani? You understand the uludhwani? A sound made to welcome. His message was not about forgiving their aggressors. Before Gandhi set out to visit a village, Akla Cholo Re, the famous song by Rabindranath Tagore, written, do you know when it was written? Anybody? Written during 1905 Swadeshi movement at that time. This would be played for him. This was a very difficult period for Gandhi. The Muslim community in particular were very upset with his presence, and they wanted him to go to Bihar, where riots had taken place and where their placards would be put up all along the way where he used to walk on his, what he called his Padyatra, saying, why don't you go to Bihar and do something about the woes of the Muslims there? Why have you come here only to look after the Hindu widows? What was his answer to that? His answer to that was, and then along with the placards, some of the local people, particularly from the Muslim League and activists and all that, some powdered, glass was put. They know he is going to pass from here. Some, dirty material is thrown over there. Gandhi's reaction was, rather than saying, all right, I'm going to go, his reaction was to walk barefoot. He gave up his sandals. Crossing bridges, single bamboo bridges at age 77. Can we have them? So this is just some photographs, as you can see, which I've scanned from one of the old books on Gandhiji's visit to Noakhali. And then later on there are some pictures of some of the people whom I met and interviewed when I went to Noakhali, and I tried to retrace Gandhiji's steps, go to the villages where he had gone. So very briefly, okay, there's not much of a commentary. Gandhiji, you can see this is an old train and he is sitting there. This is the flag, of course, and he is addressing the crowd. This is at a railway station. You can see people climbed up on the railways, this thing to greet him. This is Chaumohani, all in Chittagong district, after the riots when he is reaching there. Can we just go on quickly? So this is a very interesting picture, I'm sorry that it's not being able to correct. This is Abdullah. He is a police officer. He is put in charge of Gandhi and to see that nothing goes wrong there in the area. And what's very interesting is that by the end of Gandhi's stay, he has become a convert to Gandhi and his ideas. So this is a prayer meeting, all religions prayer meeting. He used to hold every day. So this is one of those. This is, please see the hut over here, right? This is a hut which was made for him specially, a very, that you can see, very neat and all that. And Gandhiji refused to stay in it because he said, I will only stay with the local people and I don't want anything special. Yeah, go on. So this is the tour, the map, the route that he took, Noakhali district, and particularly this was the Feni subdivision that you find over here. So you can see it says Tripura here on this side. No, I put there Tipura. That is what is Tripura. So this is the area. So please see where the area he has walked. The Padyatra, 47 days. Please go on. So these are just some shots. You get an idea of what Noakhali is like today. The pukur that you normally have in the village. Please go on. One of the lanes of the village. So this would be a typical house. आज भी वैसा ही है जैसे उस समय का था. Nothing has changed. Tin है, you can see, ऊपर thatch लगा है और इस तरह से शटर की तरह है. Very poor, very, very simple houses. Even now this area is like this. So that is me sitting outside a shop. Please go on. ये घर था पुराना. ये, can you show me this gentleman? He was a gentleman, Abul Kalam, the first place where Gandhiji stayed for over 30 days. And very interesting, he was only a small child then, but he remembers. What do you remember? कुछ मीठा मिलता था, टॉफी जैसा कोई उसके एंड में मिलता था मीटिंग के. But he remembers the Ram Dhun and Vaishnav Jan. Either he has rehearsed it or he has a recollection, but here he was the gentleman who was there in Sri Rampur, which is the main base for this. Okay. Now we are back to the photographs of that time. Here you can see how the women, I talked about that. Women coming to meet him and then being told that they should show courage. Please go on. This is a picture that I took. This is an abandoned temple. So now there are hardly any Hindus in that area. There were a few. Maybe I have a picture of one or two. But you can see from this. This is a cement shop now. नीचे. लेकिन ऊपर से अभी दिखता है कि there are some pictures of Radha Krishna, etc. That there was once a temple here. So there again the same thing, na? This is what it's outside. The cement. It's a cement go down now. See now this is a woman, very old lady who comes and इधर नहीं दिख रहा है शायद. Maybe we'll see it in another one. Please go on. This was the bamboo pole. I could not cross it. Everywhere Noakhali is a very riverine area next to the sea. It's a delta. So this is how people would cross over these the bamboo poles. But amazing he was in his mid 70s, almost 77, that he's being able to do this. This I don't know if it's a bit gaudy, but these are skulls here. So he's gone into a temple and a house and he's seen this thing. So stops there. This, if you again, it's the same thing from a different side that you can make out. Different just images of the kind of destruction that there was. The important thing for us, of course, is
Yeah, thank you.
is how he was able to deal with the kind of destruction, the people who were feeling, completely beaten down, and particularly the women, and as I described earlier, how the message of courage that he is able to give. So we can move on. Yeah, it's okay. One very important message that he gives, which is important for us today, when we talk about how do we can we live Gandhi's dreams out. We live today in a situation where all over the world we are facing conflict of some kind or the other. One very important thing which I learnt from Gandhiji was that he was opposed to ghettos. He said the message over there was to the Hindus, you must go back to your villages. And to the Muslims, he said, you must ensure their safety. And I remember this 1984 when there were anti-Sikh riots in Delhi, and many of us had been involved in some way or the other with working in those areas. So there, the Sikh widows were given tenements in a place called Tilak Vihar, and we realized over time, we were part of a women's group, Saheli and Jagori, and we used to go to work among the women and children, and we found because there was ghettos that communalization and polarization was so much easier over there. So the people, the Granthis who came from the Gurdwara, for example, and told, were coming and talking to the children, talking to the women, saying, you must never forget what happened to you, you have to take the badla, you must do this. So that whole thing. And every time we have communal riots in India, in any part, you will find that members of whichever is the minority community. In Punjab, it was the Hindus during the Khalsa movement period time, and they concentrated in certain areas or left Punjab. Other places it might be some other community, it might be the Muslims who are forced into ghettos. In my own lifetime, I have certainly seen that we don't have those common spaces anymore. There's a tendency, say even in a very cosmopolitan place like Delhi, there's a tendency for this ghettoization. Muslims moving to Okhla, moving to Nizamuddin, moving to near the old mosque, right? The school my children went to in South Delhi somewhere had hardly any Muslims in the class, whereas when we went to school, there were Muslims in the class. So, that type of ghettoization is something, this thing. Now, the months after independence were the toughest, perhaps, in his life. At his prayer meetings every day, there used to be shouts of Gandhi Murdabad, death to Gandhi, often by embittered refugees who saw an opportunity to push India and the new government and the polity into a more polarized direction. And we know Gandhi himself was killed in an atmosphere of very heightened communal tension. As in his death, it is said, as in his life, so in his death, he paved the way for greater unity between the communities, because many people who had, say, many of the refugees and many others who had become very embittered by the partition, and started supporting certain communal organizations, they were also very shocked that, oh, we didn't want to go this far. So they recoiled from that. This is written by, I'm quoting a friend of Gandhi, who worked with him, called Horace Alexander, and the book is called Gandhi Through Western Eyes. But he has written about this, that how this kind of going back was also there. In conclusion, I think one could say that many a movement in the world has for their template, for their practice, for their understanding, what we can call ideas of non-violence and unity and Gandhian practice. The Black Civil Rights Movement, you all know about Martin Luther King, others. In our time, we were very well aware of how the solidarity movement, the movement of trade unions in Poland, was very much influenced, and Lech Walesa, the leader, spoke about Gandhiji and the influence on him. Anti-nuclear movements, the peace movement, movements against authoritarian regimes of the Soviet Union, particularly Eastern Europe, I would say, again, a lot of influence. During the Arab Spring in Egypt, many books about Gandhi's ideas, Jean Bondurant, for example, that became very popular in Egypt. I remember reading a news item about that. Movements for eco-sustainability, very often the Gandhian ideas of small is beautiful, Gandhian economics again, starting at the village level, and I think his very famous statement that there is enough in the world for everybody's need, but not for their greed, but not for everyone's greed. I think this is very much the inspiration or the ideas behind the movements today, the mission for climate change, whether it's Greta Thunberg or whether it is closer home. Also, you have many small groups. The Chipko movement, for example, very much inspired by Gandhian ideas, novel ideas like hugging the trees, organic farming practices, very often by people then. If I had to single out one area where the relevance of Gandhi was greatest, I felt, or the need was greatest today, I would place it, but that's my understanding, in the field of movements which are espousing secular democracy. And I think that this is hardly surprising because Gandhi not only had strong ideas in favor of secularism or what he may call communal harmony or equal rights of all citizens regardless of faith, and also, as I said, his martyrdom in the cause of secularism. Inevitably, you find that many people who take a stand in favor of these ideals, and those who resist communalization of society, oppression in society, be it caste, community, race, whatever issue it might be, you'll find very often they not only invoke his name and his legacy, but I think in a very meaningful way, very often they do at some point in their thinking and practice, they go beyond just leaning on his memory and start taking up many ideas and elements of his practice. The world over, and this comes from some of my own interest in this field, those working with victims of trauma around themes of truth and reconciliation, and here I'm referring to South Africa, what happened in the post-apartheid society, or of what is called transitional justice. They can certainly learn from Gandhi's practice, particularly his practice as I've tried to put before you in the last years of his life. His practice can guide us in building alliances across caste, community, religion, region for a just cause. Thank you.